Hi, gang. You're listening to Burlesque Unleashed. My name is Dinah.
And I'm Isla Storm, and here we dive into the latest dilemmas, deliberations, and dramas in burlesque.
And you said it right this
I
time.
did say it right this
Uh,
time.
we chat about different topics every month, although it's kind of turning into twice a month, so we probably need to look at that. But we always share our views. As always, these are our views, so it is not fact, it is just opinion.
Quite take it with a pinch or a very large grain of salt, whatever you like. And today's very exciting because we have a very special guest with us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
No, honestly, no. I am Holly. I am the they behind 21st Century Burlesque, and I die a little inside whenever I have to talk about myself. So, so that's that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We also have a cat, which you maybe hear in the background.
A
He's
cow or
actually being quiet. It's the other cat.
oh,
This is my life.
mooing, yeah.
No, thank you so much for joining us, Holly. It was very exciting when you were in my DMs, like, "Hi, I can come and chat to you." I was like, "Yes, please, thank you." I hadn't even asked Aya. I'm not gonna lie. I was just like, "Yes," and then messaged Aya, being like, "By the way."
I mean, you knew what the
We're in a
answer was going
bind
to be.
now. I can't say no. That would be rude. I don't really want her though.
Yeah.
No.
She was like, "Oh, do we have to?"
This is
No.
the only way to keep them quiet.
Oh
You're
no,
just
I
gonna hold.
understand. Mine are being sedated as we speak. No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
Definitely. I turn the radiators. We're still in winter mode, so I can turn the radiators on, and they just climb on one each, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
My cats do that as well.
yeah.
These
They
two,
love a
these two are
radiator.
completely chill unless I'm on a call of any description. Then it's like, oh my goodness.
They know your attention's not with them. They just know.
Yeah.
I swear. That mine will
So,
headbutt the phone out of my hand, like climb on the keyboard. How dare you? Yeah, they have a
yeah.
love-hate relationship with technology.
Yeah, we'll just do
Yes.
this. It's fine.
100%.
I love that. So Holly, we have so much we want to ask you. It's so ridiculous.
So,
Um, but the original idea behind this kind of conversation was obviously our last episode we had talked about competitions, and in it we were like firing around questions between us, like, oh, I wonder if this happens, I wonder if that happens. And you were like, "Hi, I've done a lot, I can help," which is wonderful. Um, so let's just kind of get into it, I suppose. So when you are judging for a competition, I suppose high level, just kind of walk us through, like, do you get the criteria early and is it explained, or do you get it like on the day? Sort of how does that work?
I would say, oh bless, sorry. I would say, sorry, I'm a cat mom. I just gravitate towards cat activity. Sorry. I would say that, and like to be candid, like this spans about 20 or so years of judging things. So obviously things like chop and change and stuff. But
Yep.
I would say on the whole, it can be a bit of a like the Wild West situation. It can vary vastly, and obviously and again, I will say, starting out, there are some things, it sounds so like wanky, like, I'm sorry, that's classified, I can't talk about it, but
Yep.
you are sometimes told you can't say that you did certain things. So sometimes
Yep.
I'll seem vague, but it's just I'm just trying to comply. But
That's fair.
so for example, if we say, like, quote unquote, at the kind of the top of the competitive hierarchy, when I judged the Burlesque Hall of Fame tournament, there was like a pre-meeting. We'd go to someone's like hotel room there. I think it was probably Joe's room at the time, because Joe Weldon for a long time was the judge wrangler. um, and we'd all gather. So if any of us didn't already know each other or whatever, then it would be a chance to have a quick chat. Hi, hello. Sometimes you didn't. They'd usually have like one legend on the panel for sure, maybe at least one previous Miss Exotic World, as it was at the time. And then various other, kind of people in the mix. So you wouldn't necessarily know everyone. So you'd have a chance to sort of socialize. And then they would say, okay, so here is the criteria. You're going to have it on this piece of paper in front of you. There's a breakdown here, but let's go through it. By this, we mean, or by that, you may wish to consider this. So that was actually quite thorough. And, I did appreciate it at the time. It was back in like 2011. It did feel like quite a pressured ask. You do. So that works. But there have been other times where, and again, this isn't like a diss on anyone, it's just that I think some things are more casual than others.
Yeah.
Where I'll turn up and be like, yeah, okay, so we're gonna have this many people, and on this sheet, like, we've got basic things like, you might want to think about like their costume, or like their dance skills, or like, their theme or whatever, or their charisma. And if you can just mark each of those things out of like 10, and then, but it's all on the sheet, just look at the sheet, and you're like,
Yeah.
and then other times in the past, it'll just, you'll show up. It's like, yeah, so we've got some girls, they're like mostly new and stuff. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to say, at the end, you're going to have to give live feedback. So you never kind of know. I think I've learned over time, like nowadays, I think generally people are better at giving you a heads up, but I've also got more like assertive about saying, okay, can you give me a bit of a lowdown in advance? Where previously, I was 20 years old when I started out. I'm 40 now. You just learn to be a bit more assertive about things. But yeah, it's a wild west. You can literally turn up and it can be very stringent, very rigorous, and thorough and detailed, or they just kind of either think you can just crack on with it, or they're just quite casual about it.
Oh, it gives me the fear.
Yeah. It's so intense.
Yeah, my soul's a bit like
yeah I used to be like doing it, but it's definitely, when you do it enough, it's something I just try and kind of go with the flow, and just ready for anything pretty much.
It's interesting you brought up like the prejudging meeting, because I think that's great.
That was the only time.
Yeah, because one of the I've judged a single competition, but it was quite nice to be able to sort of, we had a bit of time that we could chat together kind of before and in between, even if there wasn't an official meeting. It wasn't just sort of on you go. Because do you kind of have your own, if you're judging, do you have kind of your own criteria set in your head, or are you more likely to check in with the other judges and kind of establish how you're going to approach things? I'm sorry about him.
Yeah, I think, again, like, I know that every time I answer a question I say it varies, but it does vary. It sometimes it depends. Like, for example, later this year, I'm going to be judging something that I've judged before, and we'll have recently had the conversation, oh my god, are you coming back? Oh my god, you're going to judge again as well. That's so cool. Like, you already have a bit of a like pre-experience with like the same competition or the same person, and that kind of thing. Other times, how do I put this? Sometimes, judges themselves have different levels of experience, different perspectives, different agendas. Like, I've definitely been on some panels where some people are kind of there to scout for talent. They might even be giving like their own award, or something else, so they've kind of got this kind of thing in mind. They're there to scout. It's not like that I'm saying that no one's doing a good job of judging, but they're kind of coming into it from I'm here to to kind of scout for stuff. There are people, maybe performers, who've been asked to do it. Maybe they're like a big local favorite or whatever, and I think sometimes they might be slightly more inhibited because they kind of don't want to offend anyone they know, or kind of get it wrong, and they're taking it very seriously, all this kind of thing. Suffice to say that it can affect just kind of the level of communication between people. I think sometimes, do you know what, I'm out of fucks this week. Sometimes there is a bit of like dick waving even. Like, you will sometimes have someone, and again, don't read into it, no one at me, because this isn't like some specific like but like, it's been 20 years, there's been a few dicks waving around. Someone will
you're gonna come across them.
Someone will kind of come in, and it's kind of obvious to me that they are coming into it in some kind of way where for whatever reason within them, they feel a need to exert some kind of authority over proceedings, or they want to be very vocal about their opinions and how they do things. And, again, that's something I just kind of take in stride. But anyway, my point is that sometimes, there are all these kind of other kind of little things going on where people are either don't really care about collaborating with you or getting on the same page. Other people want to absolutely kind of set the stroke and what's on the page. Some people are just kind of like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, what do you do? How do I do it? Okay. And then sometimes you just have a seat buddy. Like if I know someone I'm doing it with, we tend to sit next to each other. It's the, you're so busy, like concentrating on this whole thing that you might have, it's the person immediate to you you're generally talking to. Like there's always a time sometimes with a competition where at the end, and you're always under pressure, there's never enough time, where you might be like, fuck, what are we gonna fucking do? Have you got the same conflict that I have? Like, and you'll have a kind of quick conference, in between, like, but yeah, this is a messy answer, but that's kind of my point. Like, judging is messy. Judging is messy. And it then also depends, as you say, on the person, running the competition, running the festival. You might sometimes have someone who, if there isn't a pre-meeting, just kind of comes up to the table like, okay, guys, here's how it's gonna go. Yeah, like this is, and they kind of want to have more vigilance over what's happening. And then other times it's almost the complete opposite. So you do just kind of have to show up. I try to find out in advance who's going to be on the same panel. It doesn't always happen. And just try and assess the given dynamic that I've walked into. But yeah, you can either just feel like you're completely alone in the situation, you never have any idea what anyone else is doing, but that's why I think your own benchmark becomes really important. So at the end of the day, whether I'm doing selection, which is an isolated process, or I'm sat there with 4 or 5 other people, you just have to kind of stick to your own system in the end.
There's like 2 different questions I can ask off the back of your answer there. I'm going to go with kind of the first one that came to my head when you were talking, which is about like personal or professional bias influencing judging. Have you had to fight that urge back yourself? And have you also seen maybe that coming through in other people, either in more of a positive way because you know that person and you like them, or in another way where you can clearly see that maybe a judge that's judging with you really, like, on a personal level doesn't like that particular person? Like, is that something you've experienced, and how do you, like, personally navigate that?
Yeah, and again, it depends. Some of it depends on, again, the due diligence that the people running the given competition have done. Like with some of them, I'm trying to cover off your different little things here. Like, in some cases, you will immediately be asked, okay, look, this is who's competing. If you have any particular personal or professional, like, adjacent connection with this person where either you feel it wouldn't be ethical to judge them or you would feel conflicted judging them, please declare it. And then they'll, like, work around that. Doesn't always happen. But I will say that, in the course of selecting and live judging, I've judged people I know and love very much. I've had to at times, well, effectively via my scoring, knowing that I'm probably ruling out or deselecting a really good friend or an old peer that I've known a really long time. It comes with the territory. Yes, there definitely are differences of opinion, and some people, as I say, almost want to make them very much known, which I always find interesting. But again, I have to kind of just say to myself, well, look, at what any other judge is doing here really isn't my business. There are times when, how do I put this? There is the odd occasion where, if there is some conflict or conference or whatever, where sometimes I almost feel a bit bound to, like, intervene. Like if there is, I think, someone pulling things in a certain kind of way, and maybe some judges are getting a bit drowned out by that, I will, it's weird, isn't it? It's not like I don't think I've ever gone into this whole career for me has been kind of accidental. It's not like I ever go into it thinking, all right, well, I'm the biggest dick in the room right now, so I'm going to sort this out. But for some reason, that is sometimes what people want to happen. So there are times when, for the sake of, like, because I think it's a serious thing, I think it's something you have to take seriously, I will, if called on, kind of try to steer things around those biases in a diplomatic way. But
Mhm.
those tend to be things where, like I say, sometimes your sheets will just get taken away. They'll add up all your scores and you never hear the end of it. Other times it'll be like, yeah, can you guys just go out and decide what you want to do? That's when it gets a bit more,
Messy.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, messy. Okay, but yes, back to your question, and I've kind of meandered slightly. Oh, biases, yes. Sometimes the criteria will help you.
Hmm.
Sometimes, if a festival competition have particular criteria in mind, it can render like personal preference in terms of styles of performance or whatever else kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because if they've done it thoughtfully, then it should be universal things you can kind of apply across the board. Other times, obviously, certain lineups are going to be curated in a certain way. Some festivals are just out and out more classic festivals,
Yeah.
or gown and glove live band festivals. Some of them are within, say, like, I don't know, for example, like a more nerdlesque festival. Some of them
Hmm.
are just like, we're just taking fucking whatever. Sorry, I say fuck a lot. I'm sorry.
I
I
mean, you're
You're
talking to
totally fine.
someone that,
sorry.
yeah,
Um,
Ma's Scottish. She grew up in
sorry.
Scotland. You're fine.
Okay, cool. Um, but yes, often at the end of the day, what it comes down to is, and like there's this skill active listening, like
Mm-hmm.
anyone, if you've done any
Yeah.
kind of like coaching training or therapy training, they talk about this active listening thing
Hmm.
where it's like a skill. You're not just kind of almost, you're taught not to just wait to say say what you want to say, or it literally is almost like your ears have to go into some isolation. You have to, I think it's the same with this. There is such a
Mm-hmm.
thing as active watching.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think when you do it enough, and I just have had to do it enough and have consumed enough burlesque over a 2 decade period, where it just kind of comes down to the system that you have. I don't have time to think, oh, is this my kind of thing? Like, would I be watching this? Or like, oh, like, I don't like, people dressing up as minions is not really my bag. Or, oh, I hate fuchsia. Like, I'm being silly. You
Yeah.
don't really have time to think about
Mhm.
all of this because you're in
Yeah.
this situation where you have very, very little time to
Mm.
make immediate kind of snap judgments, mark 10 out of 10 on like maybe 5, 6, 7 different categories before the next person. Um,
Mm.
so a system becomes really important. So if they've set it up right and the categories are there and there's some context around the festival, I will say if we get onto jury selection, it gets a bit more straightforward because they will sometimes ask for your additional input. Like they have different themed nights. So
Yep.
Yeah.
they might then want you to say, like, where would you place this? Or like,
Yeah.
or you can add commentary. Like, I'll sometimes say, I know this isn't kind of like the typical thing and it's a bit unusual in the selection I've been given, but maybe, it might be good for this, or maybe throw it into the competition night and see what happens. Like,
Mm.
Yeah.
again, that slightly convoluted answer.
We love convoluted
We
answers. Go
love
down all of the
convoluted.
tangents. It's great. I think the other thing you alluded to there and in your previous answer was around having kind of your own sort of way of judging. And Aya, you talked a bit about this in our competition thing where you start from like a five, was that right?
Yeah, like say if it's out of 10, I'm kind of like everyone defaults to 5 and then you go up or down from there. Um yeah, that's kind of how I try and in that one
Yeah.
time that I judged.
Yeah, no, it's a
That's
it's
what
a
I did.
really reasonable system. It's a really reasonable system. I have found, hang on, I feel like this is going to be an answer. Hold on.
Hydrating because we're ready
Hydrating,
to
sorry.
Yeah.
go.
Because this is the one people ask me a lot.
Okay.
I think that over time, when you're judging, while that system can totally work, what it can sometimes mean is that you end up spending quite a lot of the competition reworking these
Mm.
numbers.
Yeah.
Like I remember kind of in early times, I'd kind of think, okay, well, I'll give that. And then later on, you're just like, oh, okay, now it's completely like changed. I'm going to have to go back and work this out. And you just feel like you're
Mm-hmm.
going to throw up. So what I tend to do now, and I'm just in like a position where after 2 decades I've been a theater critic and had to learn to analyze performance like more widely. I was an
Hmm.
Italian opera critic for some time. Then I was doing circus and variety, and then started doing burlesque stuff as well. I've watched, oh my god, I did, how many burlesque performances I've ever watched at this point, I don't know. In the course of documenting and analyzing like
Yeah.
trends and all this kind of thing. So you do get to a point where I have like a global sense of what A5 is, or a global sense of what A7 is, based on this whole, like, it's almost like being your own chat GPT or something. Like, sorry, toxic, bad thing to raise at the moment, but it's like you have this kind of just database you can kind of
Yeah.
pull from, like you just kind
Mhm.
of come up with it. But in terms of the system beyond that, um, we've got a really good analogy at the moment, right? It's the Winter Olympics right now, yeah.
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 I'm obsessed with ice skating. I've watched figure skating since I was a kid. It's the same in the summer. I always just like the gymnastics, with the nice outfits and the
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like there's a reason you were drawn to burlesque.
yeah, I mean, and then we got into sort of competitive performing arts and stuff. So yeah, you definitely get into the whole mindset early, I guess, without even realizing you have.
Yeah.
But I think competition in itself in burlesque becomes like our version of a competitive artistic sport. And I
Hmm.
will say from the top, I think it's fine to love competing. You can tell when someone is competing because they just really love
Yeah.
competing, not like trying to face off all their peers, but just because they like performing within that context.
Hmm.
They like the feeling and the elevation they feel from doing that, all that kind of thing. um and there's a reason we all like watching it. It's very exciting. But if we take a figure skating analogy for a second, um, the judging, maybe this, people who watch it, you'll know this already, but judging tends to be divided into two parts, right? There's the technical score. They generally have a set number of things they're going to do. It's a bit more prescriptive in skating. It's like you
Yeah.
have to do a certain like combination jump at some point. You
Yeah.
have to do, you have to kind of bid for certain difficulties and you're marked accordingly, right? But let's just take the simple, like, there's the technical and the like artistic kind of elements of it. And I think that does give you like room to reward people, because I think if you're not, as a judge, going in like wanting to reward as much as possible, then it's more difficult for everyone involved. So I think the key thing, I think, with the technical, especially at the moment, there's a lot of talk about what does technical mean. Are we talking about, and I'll probably get into it a bit further along if we get into more like the selection process part of it. But there's this idea that technical has to mean a lot of like tricks or a lot of maneuvers or a lot of like specialties or whatever, when actually, it can be a lot more subtle than that, just in terms of like command and communication within someone's body, like the tension within the body, the way they've curated like, a certain theme and all these things. So I establish kind of a baseline. Like, you start with technical, I would say. It's really
Hmm.
obvious within about the first even 10, 20 seconds what a kind of technical baseline is. And then I think beyond that, once my brain's got that settled, okay, yeah, that's kind of my technical baseline, just based on an amalgamation of 20 years of experience. That person's at like a technical ability scale of about, say, 6 right now. But then, like, as the act evolves and I see kind of how they resolve it, like the choreography of events and everything else, maybe they introduce a specialty or whatever, then you can kind of add on like, more artistic merit. And I think this is where sometimes I have to describe competition as like, it can be a bit of a rock paper scissors thing. When some people are like, oh well, how did so and so like end up winning, or how did so and so not end up winning when they packed it with all this stuff, or like, I call it like this rock paper scissors thing. I feel like there are kind of 3 key types. Again, stop me at any time if this isn't interesting anymore, but
No, this is interesting. We're
This is
like,
so interesting. I just like,
yeah.
I think there are like three key archetypal competitors, right?
Uh-huh.
So you can get your grandstanders, right? Your grandstanders will come out, and sometimes it's like they kind of feel like they've already got this. Like they're coming out, they're doing the tricks and the flips and all the you know, everything. They're throwing everything at it, right? They're just almost there for their, like, just kind of their own enjoyment in a way. They don't feel like they've got anything to prove. There's almost like, and I don't even mean this in a bad way, but it's almost like there's a certain swagger and entitlement to it. They're just there to show off, do all these amazing things. They'll pack their, you know, program, if you like, with, you're going to see a lot of quads. You're going to see a lot of combinations. You might see a Malanin backflip in there. Like, sorry, I'm into skating analogy. You got your grandstanders, and often I think people can kind of think, oh well, you know, might as well go home right now, because they've just like packed it with all this stuff, you know, especially people that get sensitive about, is it all about stunts now, you know, and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then you have your spellcasters. Your spellcasters are the kind of people, you know, and we're not in like an egalitarian art form, okay? Some people will just walk out on stage. They could sit down and read a fucking newspaper, and you would just be,
yeah. It's
like it's a witchcraft. They just draw from some sacred stone beneath them, I swear. They just draw up this like energy from the earth, and you are at mass. Like, you're in their hand. It doesn't even really matter precisely what I mean, let's be real. They're usually doing something masterfully well.
Yeah.
But it's more about their own aura.
Yeah.
It's like you could put any framework on it, any given act or like improvisation or anything, and they would just have the aura to carry it off. Then I feel you have the MVPs, to use like an American football term, the most valuable player. Someone who like just comes along with a really well put together act. Like, it's really well constructed. They've chosen it really well for competition. And this is a thing, because I remember you saying in the previous episode that sometimes you almost feel compelled to compete because it's the way to be in a festival. So you're like, oh, I really don't want to compete, but oh well, I'll get a nice video out of it. I might get some pictures, or it's a chance to network, or maybe someone will see me and I'll get a gig out of it. Like, I get that. But all the same, I always say to people, if you're going to be in a competition, though, choose accordingly, right? An MVP will have thought, what is my best type 4? Because it's usually 4 minutes. What is my best type 4 here that's going to work in this particular context? They will have rehearsed the shit out of it. They're not going to go too mad. They're not going to be trying to put 4 quads into that routine, right? They might like pull a triple axel out on, you know, like a standard but really well executed little surprise in there, or a little costume innovation or whatever. They're going to demonstrate a skill, but there's a very clear start and finish choreography of events. It might not be the most like ground shakingly innovative thing you've ever seen. It might, you know, not be some great sort of arresting departure or whatever, but they nail it. Like, they have done the preparation. It's muscle memory. So it's a rock paper scissors thing, right? Because it might be that a grandstander comes out, they do every trick in the book, every clever thing, you know, they've got all the confidence there, you know. But sometimes they're going to lose out to a spellcaster because it's just a succession of tricks. It's just like, I'm just going to do this jump, then I'm going to do this jump, I'm going to do the triple thing you want, I'm going to throw in this really high skill thing, and I'm done. Whereas where a spellcaster or an MVP, they're still thinking about how they're cohesively weaving that in, like, through their act. It's not a demonstration. It's like there's a narrative, a journey, right? So sometimes a grandstander can lose out in that regard. Sometimes a spellcaster can have an off night. Like, sometimes you might see an act in advance, and I've done this before, where I know I'm going to be selecting or judging something where I think, oh my God, I mean, if that doesn't win, like, I don't know what to say. It's so extraordinary. And then on the night, it's so hard, like intangible, but they just pull their punches a little bit, or on a certain stage they're slightly swallowed, or maybe they're just having that off night where, you know, all the cylinders aren't quite firing, right? So then they lose out to a grandstander who's just really getting everyone going, and it's just, you know, an MVP. And this is where it can sometimes get slightly more controversial, when you get the whole, what the hell was that? Why did you make that person win? Like, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes an MVP who pulls off, and I don't like the word safe, but if they pull off something that has been really well thought out, really thoroughly rehearsed, you know, with enough like of a dynamic kind of flow and choreography or whatever, they can totally win. Like, they can totally win. And this is why I do kind of try to encourage people. I mean, if that's a useful archetype to look at for people, then try to work out which one of those you are. by all
Hmm.
means, and just tell yourself that, it is going to be a bit of a rock, paper, scissors situation, and you don't know what kind of night anyone's going to have.
Mm.
But it might be useful to think about which one of those you are, and then avoid the pitfalls that come with each of those.
Each.
This is
Yeah,
like
it's
gold advice, I feel like.
I don't know about you, Aya, but like we were just at Strasbourg Burlesque. Aya
Hmm.
was performing. I was there as a fan because
For
all
the
my pals
vibes.
were in the show, and I was like, "Yay!" Um, but each of those descriptions, I can literally see what act I would
Hmm.
associate with each of them from that weekend. Like
Yeah.
I can see it in my head. I'm like
Yeah,
that one.
even in
Like
a
there's one.
non-competitive, there's the different merits that different types
Totally.
of acts and
Yeah.
performers
Yeah.
have.
Like I can see it. I
Yeah.
can immediately. You were like spellcaster, and I thought of
Yeah.
Aya the act. You know what I'm going to say? Where she's all in black, and then she was taking bits off, and it
Hmm.
was all
And
in
it's projection.
French.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was beautiful. Didn't understand a word of it. Didn't need to. Couldn't stop watching her.
Yeah.
Couldn't
Yeah.
take my eyes off her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's immediately resonating. So that's really helpful, I think, for a lot of people to understand.
Yeah. And I
Yeah, as you
think
said,
in
what
terms
what
of,
jumps out
sorry,
and what doesn't. Sorry, on you go.
I was just going to say, in terms of like dealing with the results, if you're in a competition as well, if you understand what archetype you've fit into, even just for that act or that night, because sometimes I guess people might change. Some people do lots of different types of acts. Yeah, that might help get people out of their head into
Yeah,
just
I think
like
so.
feeling terrible if they didn't win, especially.
I think so. And just like with anything, okay, like I'm coming from a marketer background as well. So like obviously archetypes can be like super helpful for us, even in terms of our personal branding and
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
comparing ourselves to our peers in different ways. This kind of archetype, yeah, can help you. And also like if you do want to feel more comfortable about competing, or get better at selecting what to compete with, or yeah,
Mm.
getting in a better like mental space for it, then archetypes I think can kind of focus you, help you select the best thing to submit, and also yeah, take a bit at the sting out of but why, and if I'd done this, and if I'd done that. Like it's literally like they might as well bring 10 people out and just go, right, you ready? One, two, three. And and it'll even kind of become apparent to me, by the end, which one is it. You don't know how many rocks or scissors or sheets of
Mm.
paper you're going to be up against on any particular night, or yeah, it's a better way to it's a better way to look at it. Helpful.
It's also got to help people when like it might help people when they're judging to think of it in that
Mm.
perspective as well. Sometimes I don't know.
Maybe I'm definitely going to be writing about this, like spelling it out a bit more
Hmm.
soon, so that people can give this some thought. It's
Hmm.
encouraging that you guys are kind of nodding like, yeah, that's helpful.
Definitely,
So
it's like
helpful.
sparks are going off in the brains, connections are happening. I don't know about you,
Yeah.
Aya, but I'm like,
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking it definitely feeds into one of the things that came up in that discussion that somewhat ended in let's get rid of all competitions. The start of that discussion was about ableism in judging, and I think when you talk about the grandstanders versus the spellcasters, that's so valid because not everybody physically can be a grandstander, for example. Not everyone can do lots of flips and things. Not everyone can wear heels, which, sometimes comes up in competition
Yeah, I can't
settings as
anymore.
like a, yeah, like I'd love to hear your thoughts about kind of ableism in judging and are we shifting away from that? And again, I know you said it varies and it will vary in competitions as to how the judging is presented, whether there's more space or encouragement for that not to be such a barrier or like a specific framework, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I would say that, most of the criteria you get tends to be sort of the same kind of thing. And they're things that
Mm-hmm.
I think, for the most part, avoid any kind of obvious discrimination. Like, e.g., I might be asked to consider the costume,
Yeah.
the layers and presentation, the thought put into a costume. I mean, that's a fairly universal thing to an extent, that people can put thought into choice of
Mm-hmm.
music again. Like that's a fairly universal thing to consider. I think then maybe it gets a bit muddier when they're asking you to mark on dance skill or
Mm.
technique or engagement and things like that. And again, I cannot speak for my colleagues around me at any given time. But I will say that I haven't seen, and there's probably a reason for it, right? I won't say that I've seen like frequently visible disabilities in front of me where I'm like, oh, okay, I can see there is a visible disability there, and maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe it's
Yeah.
because people with more visible physical disabilities are discouraged from going up against people in a competition era. So I will accept that. However, sometimes, and I say this as someone with like multiple invisible disabilities, both cognitive and physical, just they're not immediately apparent. Sometimes you will just, your radar will go off a little bit. Maybe even just on a neurodivergent or cognitive level, or even from my point of view in a sort of more like neurological level or fatigue level or pain level, where you can just kind of like your radar might go off a little bit. That person looks a little bit inhibited today.
Yeah.
But okay, but yeah, but I there has been a lot of conversation recently, as you know, about, well, is it just all about tricks and stunts now? Like if I'm not doing a drop split, or I'm not wielding a massive pair of fans, or whatever, might I just not bother. And all I would say is, and again, I can only speak for myself as a judge. I go back to what I said before. It really doesn't have to be all about that. I don't need to see a specialism at all. Like we recently had a very popular winner of a prestigious competition who didn't pull out a single prop, a single specialism. They didn't, throw themselves all over the place. They didn't, they didn't pull out a Simone Biles floor routine. They themselves were just, very grounded, completely mesmeric. Everything had been thought through. They just had complete unquestionable command and charisma. So all I would say is I try to look for it. I try to get a baseline assessment of how someone's doing and how someone's feeling, and I might just notice a little inhibition here or there. But I will admit, we're under a lot of pressure. I just try to judge what's there. But my point is, I'm kind of, there's an egality to what I consider to be important. Dance skill or dance technique can mean a lot of things. You can have trained dancers who, don't actually have a lot of flow or rhythm in their body. It can get quite rigid. You can have people who maybe move very gracefully, but there's no like snap or tension or authority in what they're doing. So, there's room. I would say maybe the most important thing to say here, if anything, is don't be discouraged to compete. I can't speak for who's going to be judging you on the night or who you're going to be up against, but I feel sure there are other judges like me out there who aren't going to be just swayed by who's being the most athletic or physical. It's more subtle than that.
100%. I think off the back of our last episode, we were talking about some of the feedback that we've had from competitions, and this kind of ties into what we've just talked about, and also the next thing the next thing I wanted to ask. But one of our listeners has given me permission to share this, but they had feedback from a competition. They wear glasses, they can't wear contact lenses, their eyes just don't like it. They have tried to make their glasses part of their costume, but one of the bits of feedback they basically got was, don't wear your glasses. And she was a bit like, I can't not wear my glasses. That was kind of useless feedback. And it felt to her, she's like, it's only glasses, but it borders on ableism because like she needs them to see. She cannot see 2 feet in front of her without them.
Yeah, that's a weird one. And I say this as a spectacle wearer who, I'm not even kidding, I think I have about 72 pairs of glasses. Some of which, that's the thing. I would encourage this person, if they're feeling worried about that, like they're feeling like, oh my God, how do I get around this? Is this always going to be a problem? As a fellow spectacle wearer, one, if you can get something with a non-reflective coating, that's great. If you can go for bigger lenses, that's also great. Another thing, look, I have a pair right here actually. If you can go for something that maybe is a little bit more clear rimmed, like defined, but like clear rimmed and large, so that,
It's
your
not
eyes
hiding
are kind
makeup, it's
of
not hiding eyes.
yeah,
Yeah.
your eyes are really fully visible. It looks a bit more outlandish for the stage as well
Hmm.
anyway. Scale is
Yeah.
good. You can also, and I can even try and like drop some links or examples somewhere. There are glasses you can get that are rimless, that have now like beautiful
Yep.
shapes and like kind of
Mm.
stoned outlines or whatever. Like,
Hmm.
I would say that it doesn't mean that you should have to conform to what this one person said, but if it's something that's going to make you feel inhibited or you're already feeling judged, just get more creative with that. Like, try and find, because there are so many kind of glasses you can get now that might be in keeping with like your theme, or
Yeah.
that can actually kind of almost highlight and
Yep.
draw attention to your eyes. And you know I would say
Yeah.
that I wouldn't get too hung up on that, but there are definitely so many creative ways to wear frames now.
Hmm.
Like, they're fashion in themselves.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. No, I
It's always worked
appreciate
for
that.
Elton John.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I appreciate
Go
that
get
because
Cat.
better.
they had come in and chatted and we were just talking about it, and then when I had said we were speaking to you, I was like, "Do you mind if I bring it up?" And they were like, "No, please do." So, thank you so much for that. But it also kind of ties into you've talked a lot throughout this that you have a very small period of time to judge and write your feedback.
Mm.
How do you write effective feedback in what is maybe 2 minutes between acts sometimes, or it feels like that?
That's interesting, because I am very rarely ever asked to give feedback. I
Oh.
can't say that. I don't know if this is, maybe I'm just guessing. Maybe it's becoming more of a UK tradition,
Mm,
but I am very rarely ever asked to write down feedback. It's almost often stressed, like at BHOF, for example. It was very much stressed that these are just for your personal reference. Okay, don't worry. No one's going to be shown these or see these. If you just need to, because I mean, you're judging like a 5 hour marathon there, right? They're literally like, if
Yeah,
you just
that's
need
a
to
lot.
remind yourself, oh, that was the so and so in the red
yep.
gown, or that, then it's considered private notes. Most of the time, I'm using my notes as just private notes. There was obviously the times when maybe I'm asked to give some live feedback, which is horrible.
Mm.
Yes.
I remember you saying about Idol, where they at least let you
Leave.
crawl off stage to recover and then just kind of listen to
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
what they're saying about you. I mean, okay. But I think that can be really awful to have someone stood there, usually kind of naked by that point, or like stood
Yeah.
there while you say things, and then of course all their friends and families just start going off. It turns into like the X Factor or Britain's Got Talent or something.
I had
Um,
lost a pasty the one time that I had to have live feedback, so I was just I had a boa. I'm just there like, mm-hmm.
yeah, I
It's
think that, yeah.
lovely.
I feel like someone needs to walk out with one of those foil blankets they put
Yeah,
on ears
just
when they're done, just like, okay. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's difficult, right? Because yeah, I don't feel like in either context I'm going to be giving someone the best or most useful, nuanced feedback. If
Yep.
I'm trying to be tactful and diplomatic, especially if it's like a newcomer competition where they want me to give
mm.
feedback, like, that's brutal. Um, where I'm having to really kind of choose my words carefully. You don't want to be a dick. Some
Yeah.
judges do. I don't. Try not to be a dick. Um, enough said. Uh, but at the same time, I don't want to be like scrawling out some kind of thing. But the sad thing is that I don't think some people are very, like, feel willing to come forward to ask for it. I remember in a
Mm.
competition I did last year, a girl did kind of sheepishly come up to me and say, I hope this is okay to ask, but would you mind maybe sending me some feedback on my act and what you thought of it? And I was like, yeah, he's like, of course, obviously, like, if you just shoot me or, hit me up on Instagram or something and we can do that. But I think a lot of people are reticent to do that.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, I know that's not a very useful answer for you, but I can't say it's something I'm often asked to do.
Yeah.
That's interesting though, because it's definitely something. So I did Heart of Ireland in Belfast 2024. I can't remember what year it is anymore. And both of them we got copies of literally the sheets that people had written on, like sent to us on Instagram afterwards, so we could see exactly
Mm.
what was said.
I would die.
Um,
Oh my God.
Yeah, I've done a couple of competitions where we've been given the feedback sheets afterwards. They've
mhm.
all been UK and Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I quite like it because I can get to see the feedback. But I could also but I also understand that's why we asked like the pressure on the person writing that in that time, knowing that it's going to be shown to the person that is being judged. I can imagine that that's a lot for anyone that has to deal with that.
I'd love
Yeah.
it if I had the time. Like I used to be a teacher back in the day. It would almost be great to have a chance to just maybe that night or in an interval, just fill in a quick report card, you know.
Yeah.
I
That
would
would
love
be a
that. I'd
nice
be like, yes,
thing.
can I have my report card?
Yeah, I would be more than happy to do that. And I've been in, you know, I've been in previous when I was performing arts trained and you had to go and do like exams or contests or whatever, and you would be given your dance card. You know, I also swapped my dance card after the audition, and on a scale of 10, they gave me, we all know that number,
Yeah.
right? But it was kind of literally a bit like that. But again, arbitrary numbers aren't very useful. So I would be happy as a judge if given the time and a bit of breathing space to do that. I would also actively encourage, I mean, you can do it anyway. I've probably seen most people's acts at some point anyway. Anyone can just hit me up. I mean, I do, I want to just draw a caveat that I do actual act analysis and audits and coaching and stuff. That's separate. But if you've done something, and you've just done a competition maybe, or you're thinking of submitting something, and I've seen it already, and I'm an approachable person. If I've judged you, or you've just kind of not got something, and you want just a kind of quick assessment, like after a competition, like please ask me. You can ask me.
I'm sure everyone appreciates that. Thank you. You'll regret this because your DMs will go mental the day that we drop this. We have come to the end of our questions around competitions and adjudication, so we just have like some general things now to
Wild
throw at
card.
you. Yeah, general. If you're not watching me, I'm doing flappy hands for no apparent reason. I'm doing this a lot today. I was doing it at work as well. I don't know.
I love how I
I'm
just
like,
joined you for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The big one, the question that everyone fucking hates, and we have this conversation with other people all the time because me and I across the pond a lot. How do you see burlesque being different across Europe, Australia, Canada, and America?
Yeah, I do.
Not a loaded question at all, mate.
I do get asked this question a lot. And I think I always start with like a big disclaimer, and sometimes you have to say the disclaimer every 5 minutes. I'm saying it once. People are going to have to deal with it. Don't at me. There is no applicable to everyone thing about this. There are very good examples in different places. There are some more obstructive examples in different places. There are no generalizations. But in order to answer a question like this, we kind of have to draw on some commonalities, generalizations, or find kind of archetypes to make things clear, kind of like before. Sometimes archetypes and some particularly common things are a way of answering the question. I'm getting that out there because
oh yeah, don't worry about it. We were talking about this
enough. But on the other hand, though, all I can say is this is kind of what I've observed as, just for full transparency. I'm a documenter who started 21 years ago. I started in America on the West Coast. I am British. So then obviously I spent a lot of time in the London scene. We're talking like early to mid 2000s onwards. So, started off in America. That really is kind of where I first became established, first started documenting, and then, obviously back in London or whatever, and then through Europe. I'm just trying to explain that kind of like evolution. And I'm kind of removed and not removed. It's almost like being the kind of Louis Theroux of burlesque, I guess, where you have like a tremendous amount of trust and access, and you learn ways to get that documentation done, to get what you need, what you're trying to say. It can take hours and hours of perseverance and conversation, and I have to talk to people on literally every side of every issue in a diplomatic, open-ended fashion, or you couldn't document like objectively. But I'm just putting all that out there because there are often like things leveled at, well, you only care about this, or you only have that. And I'm like, no, I think it's fair to say that at this point, this is as objective a take as I can make it, with the caveat that there are always going to be some generalizations. So I think that at the moment, we're obviously a little more divided by, there are kind of limitations to travel. We tend to, as herds, move in parallel with each other. There are almost these two kind of linear big tracks going on, and naturally I think we're all informed by our different cultures, and I think that 100% feeds into the kind of acts that we create and the way we collaborate or not with each other. So if we start with America, and by America I mean like the United States and kind of Canada as well. I think the US is fortunate in that many of the surviving like institutions or accessible like historical ciphers, individuals, all of this kind of thing is a bit more clear cut in the States. Even now, like obviously with the, we talk about the goat ranch days and the teaser days or whatever, but that stuff does still kind of permeate. There is a sort of sense of expectation. There's a kind of sense of like chronological or contextual depth going on. There are kind of institutions and pillars to kind of look to. The expectations are kind of clear as to like what, where you came from, even if it's not in enough depth sometimes now, but like where you came from, the people you're supposed to look at, the way you're supposed to do things, like these are the kind of institutions, pillars, pilgrimages, this is the history, this is why we do X or Y, they have more kind of clear cut roots, and I say more immediate roots. I think that's the kind of key thing. They might have like a more recent history, just the United States as a whole has a way more recent history versus like some of us over here and our like druid ancestors, right? Seriously. So obviously it's kind of different in that way, but it does help them to be, even if it doesn't seem like it, there is often kind of one hymn sheet that everyone's kind of singing off of. There's like a creative baseline to work from. They tend to be very good at doing more with less. There's a lot of grassroots organization. They're very good at organizing. They're very good at collaborating. There's a lot of cross collaboration from coast to coast, between states, and again, I think they had these opportunities to foster that at things like Teaserama or the big festivals or BHOG or whatever, where it's very easy for everyone to congregate and have that kind of show and tell and networking or whatever. So in some way, there are degrees of separation. Everyone kind of knows everyone. Everyone kind of knows who runs things over there and there. And so sometimes that can be helpful. I think they're also very good at forming, for want of a better word, houses or local or national collectives with certain sort of expectations or themes around what they're doing. Like a lot of the big scenes have a certain kind of personality about them that it's very easy to then like interpret and try to intercept, so that's important. I also think there's a scale about it. Like I remember the first time, like I said, when I was 20, it's the first long haul trip I'd ever done, and I went to San Francisco. Everything is just fucking bigger. Like even like if I was there and I saw someone I knew across the street, I mean I would really have to how to get their attention. Everything is huge. Everything is vast. Like the number of UKs, for example, alone that would fit into the United States is insane. And I think it's inevitable that people born in that environment at that scale are going to also think on a certain scale themselves. And kind of fight through a lot of that noise and scale and everything. So I know some Americans can get some kind of heat for how they express themselves, but there is something to be said for that. It's just a bigger pre-established kind of scale and foundation to work from straight away. And also, and I think we're seeing this especially at the moment, I think there is, what's the expression, a little more grist for the mill at the moment for a lot of Americans, and I'm not talking about these platitudes of, oh, everything we do is resistance and everything we do is, but sometimes, as we know, at a time when there's a lot of saturation, and there's a lot of financial pressure and everything else, and people tend not to be at their most creative or innovative when they're worried about X or Y, or they're tired, or they're triggered, or they're they're not getting enough work and things are closing down. But there's something to be said for tension, when it comes to and I think we see this especially in like, and I'm currently working on a feature with some Black performers about the emergence of Black performers in America kind of dominating classic, for example, right now. And that they just seem to be everywhere and winning every title and just kind of dominating, I mean, in a fabulous, like, completely well-earned way, but without wanting to reduce it to some kind of platitude or stereotype. Some performers there, with the things that are going on right now, the marginalization being faced, the fact that people who were already on entering burlesque divided from their families, the institutions in which they were raised. And I know we have some of them over here. Like, I grew up in a particular kind of system. Like, I get it. But in America, I try to explain this to people. It's, again, on such this like bigger scale. There are very prescriptive ways you're kind of supposed to lead your life and what you're supposed to aspire to. And there are huge double standards in terms of like discrimination on all sorts of fronts, right? So there's like a grist there. There are some Americans, I'm not even just necessarily talking about Black performers, but it is something being talked about, where there is this like additional sense of like resistance, determination, that drives creative genius sometimes. There is, I think, in terms of just the population, statistically, more spellcasters in America that are drawing from attention and a grist that some of us may not be drawing from. They generally are going to think bigger. It's like, again, if we use the Olympic parallel, right? Even in like gymnastics, you see classically, like, gymnastics was always really supposed to be about, like, the Olga Korbut, it was supposed to be kind of, and I'm kind of bringing in Europe here, like there was this idea of like historically things are supposed to be genteel and time honored and elegant and evoking certain epochs and all this kind of thing. And then the Americans walk in, like the Americans, and you can say, well, they're fucking American. Because they all come in, and it is really this addition. There's this power and this drive to everything that can sometimes seem really like obnoxious, but fuck, they get shit done. They get shit done. Like they really do come out there, and like I say, I think there's a real kind of fight or flight thing going on, and often they really will like fight, and it comes out in some of their ideas. They're pushed, I think, to more creative extremes, perhaps. And again, this is all a bit spurious, but it's just like, what we could go on for hours about this, right? But it's just one like cap.
Summarize.
Yeah, indeed. So then UK, right? And I say this as a Brit myself, I think we can sometimes impede ourselves because of our self-deprecating humility culture. And again, that's
like, that tracks.
That's definitely a difference, I think, between some of the American scene and us, is that I will see UK performers in general, even the ones who've been around a long time, are almost there's an apologetic kind of, but that can veer into passive aggression sometimes. And sometimes I have to say this to people. It's like, well, you can only be like self-deprecating and humble and kind of small and trying to keep things grassroots and not too highfalutin and opulent, and but then get passive aggressive when you don't feel like you're cutting through. You know what I mean? Whereas there are other people out there, especially in America, who either through sheer defiance and will, or just the scale at which they've been raised and the fact that everything is so big and saturated competitive, it's like, no, fuck that. I'm great. I'm going to go for it. Let's see what happens, Like, let's make this the biggest, shiniest, best thing ever. Like, let's get the best of this and the best of that. And, well, okay, we don't have the resources for that. Fuck it. We're just going to, we'll spin it and we'll get attention for it or whatever. And I think sometimes I don't want to say that the UK scene thinks small, because that's not what I mean. It's a little bit disingenuous, but it can sometimes be maybe a little rough around the edges. It can be slightly more conservative. It can be, slightly. And I think it does sometimes impede creativity or even quality in some ways. And again, I'm being careful. I don't want to be like taken wrong here, but you
Yeah.
see it when there is that resistance. Well, why are they so? And we're always like, and I just think, again, from an objective optics point of view, I think some of that does happen. I think it's great, like when some UK performers will take the step of going over there, because it's amazing. The minute people go over there, some of them will come back and be like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I completely understand. It's not to say that necessarily means that only the good people are over there, but they immediately, I think, understand quite quickly what the difference is. And I think people who have the initiative to network and set up tours, like, you can just learn an incredible amount from doing that. There's just a completely different like scale and dynamic going on. So I do see that in our scene a bit.
It definitely, like, it changed my performance quality. Like, I had a friend be like, what's changed in the past year? And I was like, I went to America. And she was like, but how has that changed, like, your quality of movement? And I was like, it expanded something.
And it just gives you more of a point of reference if you're open-minded to it, rather than going like, well, what's so great about them? If you're actually like, no, what is so great? Like, what is so great? Why are they, dominating? Why are they so big into these traditions and these things that they bang on about? Like, okay,
so inspiring. And I was just like,
yeah. And I don't think you even have to go over there to be absorbing it.
No.
I think everyone like should be spending a few hours a week looking at what just come out of the latest festival, or going back through videos of various festivals and like having that point of reference.
Spend some time on YouTube.
Absolutely. And I think also the fact that we're such a small island comparatively speaking, and yet we don't really all like kind of merge or connect to get together. I know some people do come down to London, say, for more gigs or opportunities or things like that. But I wouldn't say we get about as much as they do with 10 times the amount of space to cover. It does all get a little bit
cliquey.
Yeah, but again, almost in that slightly conservative way.
It's not necessarily in a bad way. It's just everyone's got their area. Everyone knows where they are. They know their people. And it's not even necessarily we don't want to move out of it, because I've definitely tried to get gigs around the country. It can be hard to get into those spaces because they have their people.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that doesn't happen in America, but there is a lot more of that, like, hey, y'all, where are you from? Like, let's talk about this. What are you doing? Oh my God, I know you. I saw your act. Like, whereas I think some of us are, again, it's just a cultural thing. I think we are all slightly more conservative and passive aggressive and slightly, anyway, that makes it, there's a lot of great.
Oh no, we live here. It's fine.
We get it.
We get it.
Historically, we have extremely important roots here as well, and then mainland Europe, and just cross myself now because I know that, there are some, and again, there are some wonderful things going on in mainland Europe. It's not like I don't know, and it's not like I'm not there. There are some wonderful things. People have kept things going for years and years and years and years, sustained like these safe spaces and these incredibly creative events. And that has to be said. There's an incredibly high standard of things like going on. There are some real leaders that have emerged that absolutely deserve aspiration. That said, I sometimes come up against some like obstructive attitudes that I think, when Europe maybe says we don't feel like we get as much airtime, we don't feel like we get as much kind of respect or reference or whatever, that can work against them. Like, and I'm just talking, if I pick out just conversations I maybe have with people that circle around the same themes, they'll say things like, well, we're the ones who, I'm being broad strokes, remember, I'm just paraphrasing, but like, I'm being flippant. We're the ones who, have this great historic, history of like this performance. You know, it didn't start with, you know, all the striptease and stuff. Like, we've been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of years, or we've been doing this since Shakespeare. You know, we've had all these epochs of stuff. We're the ones who, you know, came up with this, you know, satirical art form, and like we have all these big institutions, you know, where all these things originated, and like we have the history on our side. We have the prestige or whatever, and we do things in this elegant and refined like way, you know, and so why did these people get, you know, the last say on everything kind of vibe. And I think that's kind of the thing, though. I think that sometimes if you rely too much on that or use that as armor, you can end up being a bit too rigid. There are sometimes I'll see things where I think, yeah, that's, you know, looking at the times we're in, I'll see things where I think, well, yeah, that's very it's very pretty. It's very elegant. I can see the like historical references there in the costume. I can see what you're doing there. I have that historical knowledge to understand like the traditions that you're honoring here. And, you know, it's beautiful. But I think we are in a time when things are more gristy. What can I say? You know, I think we're all, I think, at times just trying to feel a little bit more alive, or feel like there's a reason to even keep bothering. And there is something to be said for, you know, the spellcasters who have emerged, who are kind of going beyond that and very much kind of performing and creating and adapting in the now. I think there is sometimes a risk that things can start to look a little bit dated, a little bit archaic, tradition for its own sake. I also sometimes hear, and I don't really care for it, I will sometimes hear performers say, oh, but we do things classily. Yeah, we do striptease, but we do it classy. We are elegant. We don't, and the thing is, I don't think some people even realize it, but to me, I'm like, because then I'll say, Lord, like, give me an example. And I'm not trying to start shit here, but I don't think people always hear themselves. I think, oh, well, you know, that so-and-so. I was like, yeah, I see where we're going here. Why is it always a black performer? Or like, why is it really always a black performer, or a performer of size, or a performer with clear, like, muscular strength, who are doing things forcefully, who aren't always making things pretty or feminine or like in that prescriptive way? Why is it that always where you go immediately? There are, and this brings me on to my other point, I think this is really unfortunate how often I still come across this, and again, not everyone, calm down, is that there are 100% still racial biases going on, sizist biases going on, misogynist, patriarchal biases going on that some people have no intention of addressing or confronting or changing, and they'll fall back on that. Well, look, this is our demographic over here. What do you want us to do? This is what we all look like. This is who we all are. Well, this is just a culture thing that we're all this size or this color or whatever else. Or like, well, we like tradition, or well, I like things to be classy and elegant. Why is that a problem? And I just kind of think, yeah, but we're kind of circling around what the actual like prejudice or resistance is here. Not to mention that and it's amazing sometimes how unguarded people will be in conversation with me, almost like they're just expecting me to nod and agree, like, oh yeah, you know, absolutely. Like I kind of went off slightly in the way I do now and then about this the other day. I think it's absolutely astounding to me that anyone who is part of burlesque as an art form, and all the values we supposedly uphold and stand for, all the reasons many of us came into it in the first place, are using right-wing fascist bullshit fucking shut down words like woke. Woke. When anyone is asking for fairly basic standard humane considerations in terms of casting diversity, inclusion, safe spaces, anything like that. Like, I really do just kind of, the fuck you say? You know, just like, but it's absolutely astonishing to me. But I think we need to acknowledge and just be honest about the fact that there are these cultural divides. Like, it mortifies me when, sorry, I'm going off on one slightly here, it won't take long, but it's really difficult when people will say, we want more coverage from you, we would like more exposure from you, we'd like you to be covering X, Y, and what we're doing. But they're happily and openly working with predators with pages and pages of reams of corroborated, witnessed evidence against them.
Yeah.
And if you raise that in the process of documentation, you'll get, oh, well, you know, that's just you guys being all like, we're not politically correct about stuff. We judge someone on how we see them. They've been fine with me. Like, if you guys, you know, we've welcomed them. And it's just kind of like, there's just every kind of thing under the sun comes out, almost just to spite, you know, the people who are asking them to address or create a little inconvenience for themselves, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
God forbid that something becomes a bit inconvenient, you know, and morally questionable. That's really difficult. That makes it really difficult sometimes for me to like really engage with communities, or when I, as a like objective documenter, want to say to someone without any like personal attack, so yeah, why is it that, you know, for the last 3 years worth maybe of shows I've looked at, it tends to be the same people? It seems to be very prescriptive. Is there a reason for that? You know, and then it immediately gets terribly defensive. Well, this is our demographic, we shouldn't have to do things, tick boxes. You know, if people are over that, they mean over there, are going to be just snowflakey and woke about it and tell us what, that's what it often comes down to, them telling us what to do when we have the, again, not everyone calm down, you know, when we have this like historic, we have the historic, like, you know, moral high ground here, the historic high ground, the traditional high ground. Like, you know, what makes me laugh though is that, you know, they say all this, and like, let's be honest, the vast majority of what's being done over there is gown and glove American born striptease.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I did a thing on my stories this morning because I was in a hole of stuff, and I was looking more at like cabaret in like the 30s, and then obviously with everything that happened in the war, a lot of those artists either died or get shipped abroad to America.
I heard you say
took it to America. Great. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's why, particularly when we do, because we saw a lot at the weekend, kind of tribute acts are more like 20s and 30s in Europe, and I think that's fine. But like, to say that we've got a classier background when those cabarets were actually kind of dirty and gritty and sex, like that's what it was about. To say that we're classier seems a bit like maybe they don't know.
That's a great parallel. I would say that like I could draw a much clearer line between Weimar Cabaret and the New York neo-burlesque scene in the early 2000s. Right? There is much more of an immediate like parallel there. It was genuinely completely fucking rock and roll. Like a lot of the pioneers back then, you know, who world famous Bob famously said could fit in 2 cabs. That was the New York version. Like a lot of it really had roots in performance art. Before burlesque had hugely like political satirical parallels. Like I often say to people, you know, who said, oh my god, I saw Dirty Martini, you know, on this tour or that thing the other day, you know, she does it to me. I was like, yeah, go and look at her American Patriot act though.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Like, or go and look at, I know that, you know, well, you know, not enough people nowadays know, but like the people who do know, oh, I've seen Julie do her you know, her like balloon act or the hand act, that's so clever. And I mean, yeah, but go and look at the rope one. You know, that really is the root. And I think the core thing, I'm going off again, don't wind me up in a minute, but like I think
we're just enabling it.
the key differentiators, right, between neo burlesque and the kind of golden age burlesque, if you like, is that I think we're just catering to something completely different, a completely different appetite, because neo burlesque at its root did completely diverge from this. I'm a talking woman in a pretty gown and my pretty gloves, and I'm gonna walk up and down, and all these cis-het men are gonna whoop and holler at me, and I've got to be a lady, but I'm not really. You know, this kind of like male gaze kind of cute, quaint artifice, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that actually belied some really gritty, challenging lives a lot of our legends were going through at the time. But neo-burlesque at its absolute roots was really just not in any like aggressive way, but just the kind of, look, we love you, we honor you, we're so glad we discovered you, because in discovering you we found a family and an art form that includes us and makes sense for us, but yeah, we're gonna fuck shit up now.
Yeah.
Like,
It's fun.
a lot of the people who revived this scene came from strip clubs, or they came from, you know, doing weird, quirky performance art in basements in New York, or, you know, kind of like steampunk Victoriana in some, you know, British town or whatever. Like, it was always subversive. It was always like recentered in terms of gaze and audience and messaging or whatever else. So I think, if you are claiming to be part of that movement and you're demanding visibility and you're demanding coverage and you're demanding precedence or whatever else, then, you know, check which scene you're in, because it's not for everyone else to kind of accommodate where you want to sit. I think coming at things from a point of defensiveness and claiming, you know, this prior schema that a lot of people weren't even around for when we were getting going, says Grandma. I was a baby at the time, but I guess I'm Grandma now. Like, I don't see how that's helpful. I don't see how that's helpful, or how you think it's even conducive to forming a relationship with a documenter.
Yeah.
We would love to be wading in there with you, but it's not a great look. So I think it's just something for, I'm really glad to see that, you know, there is some mix of that, bringing, you know, more headliners over from different places, so that a lot of Europeans who maybe can't go travel over there can kind of not see what all the fuss is about, but some of them really do see, kind of, you know, get really energized by that. Like, I love the excitement there is for performance, especially in like Italy and stuff. They get so excited. There's a language barrier. They can't even understand they're saying, but they want to just dance with them and be with them in that space. These kind of big gun with like celebrity spellbinder auras. Like, I think it's wonderful when people are opening the doors to that, rather than going, yeah, well, whatever, you know, we don't need you. We don't. I was like, well, maybe you do.
Yeah.
Again, people are going to at me. Like, we're never going to be able to cover every nuance of this. But I think those are some broad strokes that I noticed. And I think there are pluses and minuses to both, you know, with an extremely volatile, genuinely fighting for your life climate in the United States right now. A lot of that collaboration and almost like incestuous, amalgamous connections and family tree and like professional reliances on one another can become its own worst enemy when everyone is extremely triggered and exhausted and unregulated, and you know, it can make it very difficult to conduct business when suddenly everything becomes on a literal survival level. It doesn't allow for the best creativity. It doesn't allow for generosity. It doesn't allow for nuance. It doesn't allow for, you know, and there are people trying to get around that, like Jess and other people in LA have started to hold town halls, you know, with kind of clear set out ways of, you know, sharing ideas and communicating and taking turns and stuff. New Orleans are also very good at they have very honest relationships with each other. I hear this a lot. It's like, you know, it's almost like two people have just had some complete bust up, throw out row about some disagreement, and then the next one's, oh, we're good, we're all good, yeah, we just hashed it out, you know. And I'm like, how healthy. You know, there are people, I think, you know, who are trying to kind of keep the shop or window, you know, full and keep the door open, but yeah, you know, we're in a time where it's very easy for everyone everywhere to get defensive or you know, gatekeep things or resist or suspect each other and find reasons to close those doors, whatever those reasons may be. But I don't think that has to rely on us being face to face with each other in one room to achieve, you know.
I agree.
I will stop talking.
I think that anyone actually listening to this doesn't follow you, but where can people follow you if they don't already?
Uh, the main place that I hang out, communicate, circulate a lot of content other than the website 21stcenturyburlesque.com is via Instagram. Instagram is really where everything is concentrated, where everything's happening. It's kind of the best place to tune in with us. The magazine, for anyone who's not clear, is basically just me. The person you're talking to or seeing on there is just me, a human being person. And that's where I'm kind of running everything. Another thing that I've started doing, because it has kind of diversified our audience a little bit, which is great, is that 21st Century Burlesque is now on Substack. I kind of just do some curated select things on there, but I'm also about to launch a kind of special extra tier, an editor's desk tier, where I'm going to launch it next month, where we'll be able to get in a bit more, take a deeper dive into some of these things. There's going to be a couple of judging guides, like in-depth judging guides coming out, re-selection and re-competition judging, some of the stuff we touched on. There's going to be like deep diving back into archives, some of the rare stuff, footage and film stuff, like and images and just context and things that I haven't had an opportunity to put out kind of before on the website. So if you want to get really hardcore and you want to kind of benefit from some more focused insight, coaching, guidance, and all that kind of thing, that's going to be the place to be. If you are on Substack, even casually lurking around on there, if you just search for 21st Century Burlesque, then you will find it. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming up on there, but Instagram is a great place to start. It just takes you to everywhere you need to be.
Amazing. I'll definitely be signing up for that because it sounds great, like the Substack. I've been on Substack once or twice, and it seems pretty cool. So I do need to like hang about on it more.
Yeah, I think it's all right. And you can kind of just do what you want with it. You could just literally sign up to kind of hang out and follow one person. And then, there are more burlesquers getting on there now.
Yeah.
There are more burlesque people doing writing and stuff on there, which is great. But it seems like a nice place to cultivate a little kind of extra community where I can be a bit more personable and accessible and, and teach and instruct. Again, economy, times are tough. It's a nice way for me to be able to impart some stuff that otherwise people wouldn't necessarily have like access to with me. So and just hitting on some of these topics in a bit more depth. Bit of extra chi, bit of extra context, really rare old stuff that I don't show everyone, digging into all my archives. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be a nice space.
Amazing. Everyone should sign up to that. We, Burlesque Unlaced, have a Patreon. It's completely free. We just have chats on there sometimes. We ask you what topics you want us to cover. I will probably post some bloopers, mostly Aya completely fucking up one of our intros, which is hilarious. And a few other bits and pieces. Also, Aya has Clandestine Cabaret. They have got shows multiple times throughout the year. Yes. Banging headliners as always. I've had a sneak peek at what's coming up at the rest of the year, and it's very good. So do get your tickets for that. Apart from that, thank you so much, Holly. This has been
you so much.
So insightful, so useful. I know
so
everyone
long.
We love it.
Time.
It's great.
Oh my god.
Mate, we could be here for another hour. I'm just super aware that it is quite late. So I was like,
we must release you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah. I think you want to say something, Raya, sorry.
I was just going to say, thank you so much. It's been great. And also to anyone watching, if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, if you have any other guests you want to suggest, or anything like that, you can hit us up on Instagram as well. I'll probably put up a little story question box.
Amazing. Yeah, they go up every now and then, don't they?
Yeah, sporadically.
Amazing. Well, that's us. Thank you so much. And to everyone listening, we will catch you later.